You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your hosts, Mike and Matt.
Hello.
Hello, hello. And today we are going to discuss healing and tending the body, specifically sleep and breathe. So as we've said before, just kind of getting some things out front, what it is that we want to showcase to everybody, or at least to demonstrate. It's not magic or mysticism or anything like that. I mean, they're just proven practices that we've experienced in our time in the military, right? Best practices. And then also at our time at Warriors Ascent, where we've helped a multitude of veterans and first responders with post-traumatic stress. So when we talk about, like as we did in the previous episodes, the metacognitive, thinking about your thinking, system 1 and system 2 thinking, the cognitive behavioral triangle, your thoughts drive your emotions, drive your actions, all of that. And now in these episodes, we'll talk about tending the body. So eat, move, sleep, breathe. None of this is rocket science, but the facts remain that it's a proven path forward. We've done 58 cohorts at Warriors Ascent. We just had our 58th the other week. And it never ceases to amaze me how when we bring people through the process, all of the things that we're going to explicate on this podcast, in varying episodes, that it really is so impactful for our participants. So while some of the things we'll discuss, you may go, yeah, hey, I get that. I understand it. It only works if you do. So you can say all day long, hey, exercise, I understand. Sleep, yeah, I understand how important that is. But if you're not practicing that, if you're not really treating sleep as an operation, if you're not exercising regularly, if you're not eating right, you can know all day long, but it's not going to do you any good. And likewise, there's a multitude, a myriad of, say, modalities and approaches for everything from healing, post-traumatic stress, high performance. But, the fact remains, these, I'll say, foundational practices and mindsets are really what's needed to get you to the next level. And I'll bring it back to, a quick military anecdote. When I went through CQB training, we had one of our instructors. He used to say to us all the time, "What makes us hua?" So Armyism. What makes us hua, man? The basics. So you can do the fast roping, explosive breaching, and all the cool stuff that you're like, man, that's awesome. But as an example, basic rifle marksmanship. If you can't put bullets into targets, it doesn't matter. So what makes us hua is the basics, and people lose sight of that. They want the sexy stuff. They want the pill. They want the easy button.
Is there a
hua we're
pill?
Here to tell you. Is there a hua pill? Exactly.
Wow.
But we're here to tell you it's the basics that get you where it is that you need to be. What are your thoughts on that, brother?
I mean, I even had a football coach growing up, and it was always, he'd say it all the time. It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the basics. It really is. I totally agree with that. We do a helicopter. You start with a hover. It's the most basic thing you could do, and then you learn maneuvers off that hover.
There you go.
You know what I mean? It's everything builds off the foundation, and I think this is another one of those things. So, unfortunately, there's no magic pill.
There's no magic pill for the hover. You got to learn it and drill
no
it,
magic
right?
pill for this either. I mean, like, weren't you selling us a magic pill there? I thought you had one.
No such thing, brother. No such thing.
Okay.
No, so hey, for this episode, for this and the next, we'll just talk a basic principle, a basic concept, right? So I like to say it's the sleep, eat, move, breathe flywheel, and I like the metaphor of the flywheel for a variety of reasons. One, you see how sleep, eat, move, they're all linked to one another. Breathe in the center as cross-cutting, so it affects a great many things. But bottom line is, if you're getting a good night's sleep, right, you're more likely to eat properly. Why? Because you're well rested. You don't have those energy troughs that really drive people to overcaffeinate or to eat real sugary foods. You're really a little bit more attentive and attuned to what it is that you're eating. Likewise, when you eat well, you sleep better. And then also in terms of movement or exercise, it's going to fuel you better. So you're going to have a better workout. Your recovery is going to be better. Lastly, in terms of movement, if you get a good workout in, you're going to sleep well. I know I've had some workouts where I'm exhausted. I sleep like a baby. But by the same token, when you're working out and you're attuned to that, I am very, I'll say, discerning in terms of what it is that I'm putting in my body for a few reasons. One, because it's an investment in my fitness and I'm putting in the time in the gym and doing whatever. I don't want to sabotage and subvert my efforts by not eating well. But number two, you also, you want that recovery. You want that recovery. You want that ability to come back stronger. And, the saying goes, you can't outrun or you can't outwork a bad diet.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe when you're 18, but not when you're...
That's exactly it. I mean,
50s.
more anecdotes where, when I was a younger guy, infantry special forces guy, my mantra was all things burn in the fire of extreme activity.
Yeah, they did.
You could just do what you want because you're just moving so much. And now as an older fella in my 50s, the mantra is, you can't outrun a bad diet.
But you talked about the flywheel. And another thing I like about a flywheel, Mike, is as a guy who would want to start eating better or exercising and doing this, the cool thing about a flywheel is it doesn't just go straight to that high RPM and operates fast, right? It slowly gains momentum as it. I think that's a really nice analogy.
That's, I know, I love it, brother. You picked right up on that metaphor that it's slow, I'll say inexorable momentum. So as you aptly pointed out, a flywheel doesn't go from 0 RPMs to 6,000 like that. It takes a little bit to get over that momentum. But those slow, steady, incremental gains over time do build that momentum. And then once that's going, that's powerful. So that's another reason I do like the metaphor of the flywheel.
I feel like sometimes if you try to slam all of this change in one day, 1 week, that I think sometimes you kind of setting yourself up for failure. I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes it depends. It's drastic that you have to make a drastic life change. But I know I got, back in the day, I got this diagnosis with Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune disorder.
I didn't know that.
And it was like, well, I don't even understand what this means. And so we took a bunch of blood tests and found out I was allergic to, gluten, dairy, beef, pork, chicken,
pretty much like
eggs.
food.
And I was
you're allergic to food.
So what is it that I eat?
I know. I was going to say,
sticks,
geez, you've outlined a multitude of things.
And I thought, man, I'm really going to do this. And I spent probably a year and a half going full on, and I was miserable. I was just miserable because I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to change that fast. That would made it really hard. So I think it's easier to incrementally gain traction, and then we all know, and we teach it at Warriors Ascent, that habits, and what we're trying to do is form these into good habits and maintain those habits forever. So that takes, what do we like? 7 weeks, 21 days. I can't remember exactly.
21 days is what they say, plus or minus. But to inculcate a habit, and that way it becomes more system one, right? You're not even thinking about it. That's key. No, all good points, man. So with that said, we'll talk about sleep ever so briefly. And clearly, in the short amount of time we have, we're not going to go into excruciating detail. But suffice it to say, we look at sleep in terms of rituals, hygiene protocols, things of that nature. And we'll put this slide, I know it's a little bit dense, in the show notes. So, if you can't see it, we're just going to speak to the high points. But in terms of rituals, consistent bedtime, no caffeine or nicotine at least 8 hours before bedtime. Avoid alcohol. It interferes with REM sleep. Eat 3 hours before bed because the digestive process interferes with sleep. Here's the big one, and I know my kids, they violate this all the time: blue light. No devices 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. And the reason being is it suppresses melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. So if you're on your device right up until bedtime and wondering, why is it that I can't get to sleep? That is probably the primary reason.
Yeah.
And there are a variety of other things you can do. Warm bath or shower before bed, drinking herbal tea, chamomile, lavender, whatever it might be. Exercise, as we mentioned, but not right before, because that does arouse you.
Right.
And then yoga nidra. So our yoga instructor, Kerry, got a whole series of yoga nidra videos. You can find a multitude online as well, but yoga nidra meditation, very, very, very helpful.
Amazing.
So
Effective.
these are things that you can do to really kind of set the conditions, set the operational conditions, as we used to say in the military, right? For operational success, set the conditions.
Control the battlefield.
Yes. No. So those things that you can do to really treat sleep almost as an activity, a process, or an operation, right? In terms of hygiene and other conditions, completely dark sleep environment, no ambient light if at all possible. Ideal sleeping temperatures, 68 to 70 degrees. White noise for some, and that's not everyone. I know my wife does not like the white noise, but for me, it really drowns out a lot of ambient
white
noise
thing, and I really like it.
I know, there's white noise machines, fans, a variety of things. No naps after 3 p.m. I know people advocate for naps during the day, which is great, but after 3, supposedly it interferes. A weighted blanket, aromatherapy, and supplements melatonin. Now, I think there's some studies out that people are saying be cautious of melatonin and things of that nature, the medicinals. But hey, bottom line is whatever it takes to get a good night's sleep. I know you were saying, talk to us about your time. I know, hey, I come from an infantry ranger SF background where, in many cases, it's like sleep is a crutch. You can sleep when you're dead. And my thought was always, well, with a mentality like that, you're going to be dead sooner than you think. But I know, in aviation with crew rest, in my assessment, they got it right. They realized sleep needed to be managed like a resource. So,
the ground guys and different guys, they were hating on us because of we do get this crew rest and we can get a bad name for it by like anytime you say, no, we can't. Like I used to say, we're Americans, not Americans.
Right.
So we can do it. We're going to do it for the customer. But what was important was that we do believe that you have to be well rested to do the things that you have to do in an aircraft. And trust me, on board, you want that. So I got some of these idiots sitting next to me that got a 12-hour sleep and still can't perform right.
Right. And under the best of circumstances. You certainly don't want them sleep deprived.
No, but they were really good at it. And one of the main things we recognized was that cyclical behavior of sleep.
Explain that.
Like, I don't know about you, but at 9:30 every single night, I can hardly stay awake. It's because every night at that time, I wake up almost every morning at about 5:05.
It's your circadian rhythm.
It's my circadian rhythm that just does that. I'm always so impressed with somebody who has a day off and it's a Saturday morning, they can sleep in till 8. I don't know how they do that. It's not something I have the ability to do because of my rotation. Now, like if we were going to change and suddenly you were a night flyer and you needed to switch over to do some day mission, what we would do is make sure we moved forward in time. It was worse to go backwards for your brain for some reason. So we'd do it 6-hour chunks of time. And if you couldn't do that, they'd make them take an entire 24-hour period off. And the thing was, if you took that period off, the intent was that you were actually going to try to sleep and you're actually going to rest and use it properly. They would throw, like, sometimes we just would have a huge mission and we needed like some of our, higher risk type pilots or whatever. And we would switch them over to days and they would try to use Ambien.
Ambien, yeah.
Ugh. And for me, that was horrible because here was a circadian rhythm and I'm really locked into that after years and years and years of doing it. And so I'd take that stuff, and it'd knock me out quick.
Right.
But I would wake up within like 2-3 hours and I would just be like not home anymore. I don't know. I had the biggest time using Ambien. So the hardest time.
Dreams, and we used it a little
Weird
bit too,
dreams,
especially
people were walking around.
Going overseas, where it's like 12-hour time difference and all of that. But I think,
there was nothing. There was nothing better than taking the right amount of time to move someone forward until they were at the right spot. Given you have that, sometimes you'd get this 96-hour sequence of planning, and sometimes you would get a 48. So it's depending.
When I'm, I'll say exigent circumstances and the mission requires it, we all rise to the occasion. But
right.
And I'm not lambasting the Army, but I think as the Army culture that becomes almost like a steady state operation where you're sleep deprived.
Yes.
And where that's relevant to, I'll say listeners and viewers is, and I think the Army realized the hard way, because you got a lot of mental health issues and emotional stuff and I'll say physical ailments, whatever it might be, from this notion that all you need is 4 or 5 hours sleep a night. Absolutely not. You can't do that for months and years without having a deleterious effect on people's well-being.
There's always going to be some
psyche
consequence.
And all that stuff. And I'll say, translating that into life beyond the Army, for those that feel, well, hey, sleep's a crutch, or I don't need it, I can get by without it. And then they're wondering, well, God, why is it that I feel so horrible? And even aside from just being sleepy, just overall sense of well-being is impacted. One of the things I wanted to say almost up front was if there was a pill that you could take that would increase your energy, your cognitive abilities, recovery, mood, well-being, all of that, how much would you pay for that pill? And I know anybody would be like, oh my God, I'd pay hundreds of dollars for that if it would do all that. If it made you look younger, all these things. It's like, oh my God, what is this magic pill? Yeah. It's 8 hours of sleep a night, man.
Yeah.
And people are, no, it's the truth. It is, really work towards that. And I know Army culture, at least in some instances, was, you don't need that. It's
sleep
like,
dead. I know as a more of a senior, we said we were doing our crew rest, but there was things that had to be done, and so I would go change clothes and say, well, now I'm not on duty. Right. And we'd have to play it the silly way too. Yeah. If we had guys that would say, oh, I turned into a pumpkin, I can't do anything, then we had abilities. Commanders could extend time. Right. But you're supposed to look right in the face of the crew, all the crew, and say, hey, do you have it? You got what it takes to do this? And yes, Yeah. But then the commander takes a risk, and then it goes to the next level commander for the next hour's time. And so we're not messing around. So each one of those steps up a level of risk, and it takes that next higher command, And if you're talking to the brigade commander, you better have real good reasons.
Absolutely. It better be absolutely mission essential. And therein lies the issue. I mean, hey, we're all adults. We've all been, there are times, hey, Ranger, right? Where you're going and that's part of the training, just to kind of set your mind that, hey, your mind will quit before your body will, more often than not. But the nuance is, it's like, but you can't operate like that all the time.
Well, and then we're doing steady state operations, and you're in a theater for a year tour, 9-month tour. And this is a daily grind. It's not like you get to go home and have a weekend, know. But we did. After X amount of time of days of work, they made us take, I think we would change it. And it was a big deal to change. But there was a point where there was a 48-hour reset, and that would just dump all your numbers and start you from scratch. Because we counted this 30-day, and then it slid to the next days. And if you flew too much, you had to go to see a flight surgeon. And we never ran into this stuff until we were deployed, and then we were running into it with a lot of people.
Well, I'd imagine flying under NVGs and all that stuff.
Well, and it was mainly just
adds to the stress and the load,
And the legs got long just because of, we were moving a lot of things around the battlefield as kind of logistically. Well, everything wasn't a combat mission, but is in a combat zone. So there's always that thing. But a lot of us were reserved for the night ops because we were doing kinetic ops a lot. So anyway, sleep was a major thing, and the command and the management, we worked really, really hard to maintain that and look people in the face and see if they could handle this. Here's another funny thing is at the end of your career, if you do a full one, next thing you know, they're really interested in your sleep apnea. And they'll give you 50%.
Because then they realize that, hey, that really shortens your life. That's interrupted sleep. Yeah.
There's something too that I came out with sleep apnea. I mean, without my machine, I'd ding or die every night. So there's no missing out on that thing. It's hard to go camping anymore without a CPAP machine, but the Army knows and the military knows that sleep, somehow interrupted sleep, is bad for your health, and they're recognizing it and actually paying us ahead, saying, "Hey, sorry." So the sleep is not messing around. This is important stuff.
Well, and that brings us to our next thing in terms of with the apnea, the issue is interrupted sleep. You stop breathing, right? So that's what wakes you up. That's what interrupts sleep, and then you've got all sorts of medical complications and issues associated with that, and they take it very seriously. But in terms of breathing, as we said, one of the things that's cross-cutting, obviously, hey, exercise, it's important to breathe when you're exercising. Yeah. Meditation, sleep, all of that. But, just some best practices there. Mm-hmm. So whether it's breathing, meditation, and often for meditation, you're using breath as an anchor, which I find to be pretty effective. Big because time. Not only are you now working the diaphragmatic, breathing, but you're using that to kind of, anchor your focus, which I think is very important. Really, in essence, exercising focus and attention, right? So with breath, your autonomic nervous system, right? So you've got your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic is responsible for fight or flight. Your parasympathetic is rest and digest. So where does breath come in to that equation? Well, your breath, your deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is where you activate the parasympathetic. So if you're in fight or flight, those deep breaths activate the parasympathetic, which is responsible for calming you down. So it is an active, function that you can, override to, all right, hey, because quick, shallow breaths, that your body responds to that, and it I'll say interprets that as being under duress. Yeah. So you see that. Whereas if you could nope, I'm going to deliberately do deep breathing to relax myself. That's very important. Just from overall well-being, sleep, as we mentioned. And I've been reading some, things on TV and literature and podcasts where they say that hostage tape, right? Putting tape over your mouth when you're sleeping so that you're not, doing what dudes with sleep apnea would do. But breathing through your nose when you're sleeping, or mostly, throughout the day, that's the way human beings were really designed to breathe, because your nose is a filtration device. Yeah. And people, I hate to say, are predominantly mouth breathers, some of them. And studies more and more have shown it's really more advantageous and healthier to breathe through your nose as well. So beyond the diaphragmatic breathing, which, again, you want to see proper breathing, look at an infant or a child. You can see their little tummies rise and fall. Then you get older, then they say, you start breathing with your chest. It's just chest breathing. And then as you get an older person, they start doing that throat breathing, so you can see that evolution. You're like, oof, that's insidious. I need to reverse that. One of the best ways is with that diaphragmatic breathing. It's pretty interesting to learn that. And of course, I learned that in yoga at Warriors Ascent, learning that. And I do it all the time now. And it's just like, it looks so funny. And I look down and I'm see this big belly coming up. But I know it's like, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's right. No social judgments or no social comparisons, as Kerry would say. That's right. Well, Kerry, he talks about the box breathing as a technique, so 4, 4, 4, and 4. So you're breathing in for a count of 4. You hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. And then hold for a count of 4. And that's just a good exercise that, again, under stress and duress, you can use. All right, let me do some box breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, again, belly breaths, things of that nature. So, hey, we blew through that very quickly, but we've only got X amount of minutes. However, so sleep, absolutely essential. Breathing, proper breathing, diaphragmatic breathing through the nose, very essential as well. And using that as an anchor for your meditation practice. And we can have another episode that really goes into detail and does a deep dive on the efficacy of meditation as well. But some practices, I'll say two focal points in your tending of the body that, well, hey, as I said up front, don't seem like the rocket science, no magic or mysticism there, but dial in your sleep, dial in your breathing, when you're going for a walk or whatever it might be, be very attuned to that. And over time, incrementally, you're going to see, hey, I feel I'm more focused. It should come as no surprise. I'm more well-rested and things are so much better. But I think a lot of people believe, well, you either get good sleep or you don't. And what it is that we want to impart on people is, no, you can set those conditions by various practices, protocols, rituals, and even a good breathing practice. So those are the those are the takeaways. And
that's why they call it practice, right? Because it takes time to do something as silly as learning to breathe with your diaphragm and count. It's like here you are. Here, when I'm counting, it's like sometimes I think that's what's calming me down, because all I can think about is getting the counting right, and then obviously the breath is happening and it's talking to my parasympathetic, but my brain's concentrating on the damn numbers.
Yep.
And now I can't concentrate on what's making me mad.
Because you're focused on one thing, and it keeps those intrusive thoughts from
really
invading. It does keep you focused.
Like that breath is
and as I said,
helpful.
we'll do a deep dive on meditation and how really that is an exercise for focus. In essence, your mind wanders during a meditation practice, and the repetitions, really, quite frankly, are just bringing your attention back. And breathing is a means of maintaining that focus, and as a dual purpose also of relaxing you and exercising that as well.
I like how you said that it was, basically this is this unbelievable pill that you could sell, and you just own it. It's yours. All I got to do is breathe. That's
in an era of, I'll say, instant gratification and, always looking for the easy button. Hey, you've got it at your disposal. It's just, as we said right from the get-go, it only works if you do. So you have to do the work.
You just have to choose to want this.
That's exactly it.
Because you can.
All right.
That's pretty awesome.
I think that's it, brother.
Yeah, man. Good job. Like you said, we blew through that. It's an interesting topic.
All right.
Next time. Hey, everybody. Like, comment, and share. That's how we grow.
Yep. I hope this is of use. Again, for those that are like, all right, hey, I get it. That's nothing new, nothing novel there. But the message we want you to take away is it only works if you do. You've got to do the work. The success path, you could do a multitude of things. Do these things. Because what makes us hua? The basics.
What makes us hua?
That's right.
Got to be hua.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.